So you may know the very anthropologically important film Princess and the Frog. Um,
Oh yeah, with
that was a joke. I'm not running on with that.
Oh, I was gonna say, we're talking about Princess and the Frog. It's got the best soundtrack of any Disney movie in the last 20 years.
Even better than Moana?
Oh well,
It can only be attributable to human error.
You're entering the paranormal.
You meddled in things that you people. You meddled in things. You meddled in things.
Where will we go next? It's a phantom from another time.
No one, Mr. Mulder.
That's it, man. Game over, man. Game over.
That is one big pile of shit.
hi, I'm Alex Daikaiju,
I'm Jasmine with
I'm Eli Watson.
and you're listening to
Cryptid.
Campfire.
Spooky Edition. Ow! Ow! That's right, everybody. Ooh yeah, cry havoc and release the werewolves of war, my friends. Cause it's Cryptid Campfire, and today we're talking about zombies.
Bray. I could not be a zombie, clearly.
Dang, dude. Being a zombie does not sound as much fun as it is being a vampire. You know?
Yeah.
Well, as a vampire, you get to keep most of your faculties. You know?
That is a good point. It's funny because zombies are a very big downgrade from a vampire in terms of undead.
Mm-hmm.
And well,
But they're like sand. They get everywhere, and they're coarse and they're rough.
I hate
Okay,
so
Anakin.
it. Anakin Skywalker ironically becomes a zombie later on.
Yeah, he does, huh?
And I guess, I don't know, zombies, much like vampires, are something that are kind of rare, not really well known to the public. So I guess we'd have to spell it out for everyone in the back. What exactly is a zombie?
Yeah, so zombies are your typical reawakened corpses created by either an infectious virus, and then it is passed on via bites and contact with bodily fluids. They can be strong, but they're usually, robotic, a little fragile, rotting flesh, their only mission being to feed. Don't have very great conversation skills. Usually just communicate through grunts and whatnot. Causes of zombie viruses can range from radiation as well as mutations of existing conditions such as prions, mad cow disease, measles, and rabies. So there's a lot going
Nice.
on, while also at the same time there's not much going on because there are exceptions to the rule, I suppose, which we might talk about a little bit later when we get into some pop culture and movies. But for the most part, zombies are unintelligent, walking around aimlessly, food, but still very dangerous.
Whoa.
Yeah, sounds kind of spooky, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. And you want to know something spookier?
Huh.
You might be thinking to yourself, zombies only exist in movies and
Mhm.
books. But what if I told you they're real?
Oh no.
I would say Pixar didn't happen.
Well, there are pics, and it did happen.
Oh no.
So I'm going to get into what is known as the zombie deer disease, aka chronic wasting disease. So, while not the typical, rising from the grave, the undead, there is a disease in the United States. It is a neurodegenerative disorder, but also a disease. And it affects deer, elk, reindeer, sicken deer. What is that? Sika deer, and moose. and it's been reported in the U.S., Canada, Norway, South Korea, Sweden, and Finland. I think it's been reported in like 24 states in the
Whoa.
United States. Yeah, it's like quite widespread. Uh, so pretty interesting. It can take about a year before it starts showing any signs that the specimen or the victim has this disease.
Mm-hmm.
These symptoms include drastic weight loss. Uh, how do I say? Like weakened. How do I say it? How do I say it? Yeah, impaired coordination. So they start stumbling around. They don't really know where they're going, and like just kind of they don't have a fear of humans at that point or any kind of predators at that point. They just kind of are mindless zombies walking around as their body begins to waste away.
Oh.
Quite literally, yeah, and it can lead to some pretty gruesome looking stuff to where there's pretty decayed looking animals just walking around like everything's okay, kind of. Um,
Whoa.
Yeah, so it was first identified in a lab in Colorado in the 1960s in a captive deer. They noticed this disease, and then they noticed it outside in the wild in 1981. Uh, they're not entirely sure, but they believe that it's passed through bodily fluids, feces, saliva, blood, urine, and it's either directly or indirectly through the contamination of soil.
Mm.
They did some experiments. Obviously, the concern is, can this spread to humans? And so, they did some experiments to see if they could. So they've been trying to do it with monkeys, where they fed monkeys some contaminated meat, some contaminated brain matter, and it has infected the monkeys. And so they were trying it on some, I believe they're called macaques. This kind of ape that's the closest to human, I think, immune system wise, it's like closest to human, because like chimpanzees have stronger immune systems than us and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. So, yeah, so they did two different teams, did different experiments, and one team said that they were able to infect the macaques with zombie deer disease, while the other said that they couldn't do it. We're not really sure why there was a discrepancy there, but I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it was the same experiment. They just fed them infected, contaminated meat. Um, the worry is that a hunter will kill a deer, during that 1 year span where there is no symptoms, it's
Mm.
asymptomatic for a year, that
Mm.
someone will kill a supposedly healthy looking deer and eat it and suddenly become infected with chronic wasting disease,
Oh
and then
man.
from there be able to spread it to humans. But like I said, it's been around for like 60 years and it hasn't done it yet that we know of. Uh, so hopefully it doesn't, but we don't
Ooh.
know.
Oh boy. That is kind of scary. Uh, in the year of our Lord 2020, the idea of an animal carrying a disease that can jump its way to man through consumption.
Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty wild.
Well, I think everyone out there can agree that when you were talking about it, I kept expecting you to call it the the chronic wasted disease.
Chronic wasted disease. Yes, it affects most human beings who go to bars.
From the ages of 21 to 35.
Chronic wasted. Um, on a microscopic scale, going down to the, you know, in the animal line, we're going to some of the smallest organisms, uh, known as ants. So we're talking about a specific fungus known as Ophiocordyceps or Ophiocordyceps. And so it's actually part of how this fungus reproduces. It basically infects an ant, uh, hijacks that ant's central nervous system, causing the ant to climb up a tree, and then getting onto a leaf. It, chomps down, stays there, and then dies. And then from its head will spring this fungus as a spore to rain down on the ants below, infecting more of them and spreading the fungus even more.
Mm-hmm.
That's disgusting.
It's pretty savage. It really
Oh,
is.
it's wild, man, and the photos too of just like these. They are like, because the ants, I think their eyes, they go like completely pale sometimes.
Yeah.
So you have a little zombie ant, and it just has these giant fungusy tendrils shooting out of its head.
Yeah. It's pretty nuts though. It's scary, dude. I don't like that. I really don't like that. It scares
That
me
would
more than zombie deer disease, dude. Uh
That's what inspired. This is jumping ahead, of course, but it is a good place to talk about it since the sequel came out, and I don't know, no one's talking about it since. The Last of Us,
mm,
that idea of a fungus causing kind of like zombie-like tendencies in a creature like an ant, and then evolving away into man, and that's what the enemies are. They're humans with like these giant fungus sprouts shooting out of their heads.
Ugh.
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, is that a game or a movie?
A movie, a game. Well, it calls itself a video game, but it's like a movie where you get to walk every 5-10 minutes, and then a 20-minute cutscene hits you.
I see.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of the Last of Us. Sorry, fans. I know there's bound to be
Yeah,
one of you who is.
I'm sorry, everyone out there, but it's a very basic, playable movie with a very basic story of human struggles.
Oh yes, dude. I have one more disease that could be classified as a zombie-like disease.
Ooh.
This one's also pretty frightening, because this one affects human beings. It's known as nodding disease. As far as we know, it's only in certain regions in Africa. It started in Sudan, but has now spread to Uganda and Tanzania, possibly more countries. Basically, it's called nodding disease because the main symptom is uncontrollable nodding. Usually happens when the victim is either eating or they are cold. And it does stop, but kind of on its own. I should know it only affects children, and it's a mentally and physically disabling disease. So basically, these children become unresponsive. They start having seizures. They wander off. They've been known to start random fires, which I think is very dangerous.
Whoa,
Uh,
yeah.
the permanent stunting of growth. So even if you do recover, you're going to be the size for the rest of your life at whatever age you were infected.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. I was reading some stories to where, some parents have strapped their kids to bed to prevent them from wandering off, but they were just started reacting really violently and trying to like bite the straps off.
Mm.
It's pretty wild. I mean,
Whoa. I mean,
yeah.
that's crazy too, just to think like a side effect is setting random fires.
Yeah.
Like, imagine if it was just like, oh man, uh, if you ever got sick, like with the cold or the flu, and it's like stuffy sinuses, blurry vision, congested cough, occasional arson crimes.
Yeah.
Oh boy, I got to get some Sudafed right away.
Yeah, dude. It's pretty wild, and due to I mean, those are underdeveloped areas of the
Mm-hmm.
world, so it's not like there's hospitals everywhere. There's
Mm-hmm.
not like healthcare out there, so it's just been kind of spreading. But anyways, enough of that doom and gloom.
Oh,
Uh,
science of zombies, eh?
yeah, it was actually a lot more savage than I thought it was gonna be, but I don't
Oh.
know.
Mother Nature, right?
Mother Nature.
I was gonna say that's some of the sciencey parts behind everyone's favorite brain eaters. The real question is these funny little guys got any folklore behind them, or are they just inventions of modern day cinema?
All right, well, I guess we're going to talk about Haitian folklore and really what it comes down to as voodoo. I just want to give a little brief history on voodoo. So voodoo was a religion created in Haiti in the 17th century. It really draws its roots from West Africa as well as a few other African traditions, and it kind of mixes it in with Roman Catholicism. I hate to bring it up, but it did really kind of spring out of the slave trade that was happening at the time. Very unfortunate topic, but that's where we're going with this episode, so please bear with us.
So the Oxford English Dictionary says that zombie is a word of West African origin and that it was first recorded in English in 1819. It's related to the words zumbi, meaning fetish, and Nzambi, meaning a god in the Kikongo language, which is spoken in Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and surrounding areas. So this is kind of where the idea of a zombies started and then gradually spread through the USA and Europe, fueled in the 20th century by fiction, cinema, and television.
So, in voodoo, it is believed everyone dies in one of two ways. There is the natural way, sickness, God's will, growing old, or unnaturally, in the case of murder or something like that. So the people who are killed unnaturally linger at their grave, unable to join their ancestors until the gods approve. And so while in this period of waiting and lingering at their grave, a sorcerer, aka a bokor, can capture this soul and, basically put it in a glass jar. And they can use it to control their undead bodies that they're lingering just above, or sometimes a captured soul can be used to heal a living person. It's feared, though, that they'll be used for evil purposes like killing someone, and they have to obey the command of the Bokor, their captor. It should be noted, though, this is exists on the fringes of voodoo. This isn't like something that they talk about on the regular. It's actually kind of debated within people who practice voodoo whether or not it's real or not, so make of that what you will. But I think you can suffice it to say that the fear of zombies is not so much the undead, you know, zombie rising out of their grave. It's having your soul captured by an evil Bokor and being forced to do evil things.
Basically, what I found is a little bit different from what you just described, Eli, when it comes to the Bokor or witch doctor. I read that a witch doctor can render their victim apparently dead. So this is just like a normal person, not anybody who's already passed away, but just a normal person who's alive, and then captured, and then either through magic, hypnotic suggestion, or a secret potion can be appeared to have died and then resurrected as personal slaves, since their soul, as you mentioned, has been captured at this time. So basically, they can take a potion that they make with herbs, shells, fish, animal parts, bones, hallucinogenic plants, things like that, and then they feed it to this person, and then their body appears to be dead because it includes things like tetrodotoxin, which is a chemical found in the pufferfish that causes anyone who ingests it or even touches it to go into a death-like state in which the heart slows and the person appears dead. Used carefully at sublethal doses, the tetrodotoxin combination can cause zombie-like symptoms such as difficulty walking, mental confusion, and respiratory problems. And high doses can cause paralysis and coma. So this could cause someone to appear to be dead and then appear to have resurrected later, and things like that.
Uh,
Whoa.
I think we can say this, but voodoo does come from a multitude of different, traditions.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the mixing pot of a bunch of different things. And, like most religions, there's different sects, like Christianity itself. I mean, you have, you know, Catholicism, you have Russian
Mm-hmm.
Orthodoxy, you have non-denominational Presbyterian, a bunch of different stuff. So I
Baptist,
would
Lutherans.
exactly, and the list goes on. And even amongst Judaism, there's a bunch of different practices as well. Um, so I would say, it's possible that people who practice voodoo don't all believe the exact same thing, especially with something that's as fringe as, the topic of a zombie,
Hmm.
Like we mentioned before, it's not like this is one of the pillars of voodoo.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's one of those things to where I'll make a quick note because we'll kind of explore that later on, I think, because we're gonna get to the pulp culture funness of zombies. But one of the things that is completely misunderstood and misrepresented is voodoo in popular culture,
mm,
to where it's one of those things to where I didn't know for the longest time really what it was without actually kind of some deep diving. Because, it's like you watch anything and it's like, oh, they got voodoo and it's like there's zombies and there's
yeah,
like little stitched up dolls with needles, there's flying skulls and everyone's got top hats and skull makeup on. And you're
yeah.
just like, this is crazy. And it's like, no, no, no. That's all just pulp culture nonsense. Like, so always be wary of anything that's got voodoo in it, because it's most likely it's just a bunch of nonsense someone made up that looks cool.
Mm.
Because it is a real religion and there's a lot to it.
Hmm.
Oh, for sure. So I don't know if you guys got this, but the most academic research into the Haitian or the voodoo zombie topic was done by a guy named Wade Davis.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he wrote the book The Serpent in the Rainbow, which is very popular.
Oh
But
yeah.
yes, and I think there's a movie of the same title.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Uh,
but the book that focuses in on the zombie is called Passage of Darkness: Ethnobiology of the Haitian Zombie. But go ahead, Alex. What were you gonna say?
oh, I was just gonna say, I don't know if we could talk about it now, but I have some info about the movie, which is pretty funny with the book.
Tell me.
Okay, so you were going to describe the book, but it is, from what I could tell, an actual academic released book. To where it's more of like a quote unquote study of all these practices that this guy saw, and the processes of how someone gets turned into a zombie. You're like, oh wow, that sounds crazy. And then, because I think the book was released in 1985, 86.
Yeah, I think somewhere in there.
And they released the movie of it in 1988, directed by Wes Craven.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's one of those things because it's like Serpent of the Rainbow, and so they took this book, which is more or less an academic, and they made a full blown horror movie out of it. To
Did they
where
really?
the scientist is played by Bill Pullman, and he gets contacted. Hey, we want you to go down to Haiti, kind of look around. I think he's an anthropologist, or he's some kind of guy who's doing like a research. So he goes down there. He talks to some people. They're like, oh, hey, welcome. Oh, you want to see voodoo? They take him to like, an alleyway where people are selling stuff, and you see all the fetishes, and he's like, oh wow, this is kind of cool, kind of crazy. And then he gets turned on, and they feed him all these drugs, and then he gets buried alive.
Oh my.
And there's just a shot of him screaming, "Don't bury me! I'm still alive! I'm still," as the dirt gets piled on his face.
Oh my.
And then he gets turned into a zombie, and it's this fight to save his soul from the real evil Bakor.
Oh my goodness. That's pretty savage.
Oh, and there's this part where he goes into, because you're talking about, I think they touch on you can die in two ways. And I
Yeah.
think there's a part where they imply that he's like in hell or something, and it's like this Freddy Krueger-esque hallway of all these wooden doors, like old prison. and he's walking through, and all these giant hands, like with elongated fingers, shoot out, and they start grabbing at him, and
Oh
just like
my.
screaming.
Oh jeez, that sounds
So,
terrifying.
oh, it's good. I highly recommend it because it is pretty scary. But just imagine that movie coming out and people and the poster is just Bill Pullman like with his face pale being buried alive, and then people are like, oh my gosh, it's based on a book. I'm sure people bought the book out, and it's like, oh, beginning of the studies of this and that and the plants of this, and just like a boring textbook.
I think it's written more along the lines of an autobiography or a memoir.
Yeah, but you get to it, and it's like, where's the hands that shoot out of the wall, and where's the guy being buried alive?
Yeah, I don't know if that happened, but let's see. I have an actual case though that Wade Davis investigated.
Mm-hmm.
If I may share.
Please do.
Yes, so it is the story of a man named Clairvius Narcisse, who reportedly died on May 2nd, 1962. He checked himself into the hospital, and like 2 to 3 days later, he died. And they were unable to really determine the exact cause of death. He was suffering from a bunch of different things, like different ailments, different parts of his body hurt and whatnot.
Respiratory problems as well.
Oh, okay, yeah. And so in 1980, his sister Angelina saw Narcisse in a marketplace. And when she approached him, he was able to recount memories of his death, including being buried alive. So maybe that's where it comes from in the movie. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So he claimed to have been placed in a death-like state by a bokor. Later, after he was buried, he was dug up and whisked away to work on a plantation as a zombified worker. He escaped after 2 years of slavery and wandered through the Haitian countryside, only returning to his home village when he found out that his brother had died. And that's because he believed his brother was the one who had made a deal with the bokor to basically sell him into slavery.
Oof.
Yeah. Davis claims that he discovered the key to zombification, and it's really in line with Jasmine mentioned earlier. It comes from a specific flower called the datura plant. And it's got a bunch of different names that I'm going to rattle off right now. So thorn apples, Jimson weeds, moonflower, devil's weed, hell's bells. It causes delirium, confusion, psychosis, and complete amnesia. However, it was never confirmed that Narcisse ingested this plant at some point.
Mm-hmm.
It's also called the zombie cucumber.
The zombie cucumber.
Just
That's
two
cool.
words. 2 words in English, so when you put together, create magic.
I don't know. That's pretty interesting. I mean, I'm sure the book is like chock full of different stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely some pretty crazy stuff. To think that has happened to somebody, like, yikes.
Ooh-wee.
Yeah, going off of the whole claim that he has about how he was taken to work to a plantation, I read that it was a sugarcane plantation specifically.
Mm.
And there was another writer named William Seabrook who researched rumors of zombie workforces working on sugarcane plantations controlled by an organization called the Cult of the Dead. He visited Haiti either in 1929 or a little bit before that, because 1929 is when he released the book called The Magic Island, where he talked about his experiences in Haiti and what he witnessed and what he learned and what people told him and all of that. And his book is believed to have been the inspiration for the first full-length zombie horror film, White Zombie, which was the first popularization of the Hollywood concept of Haitian voodoo zombies.
Mm-hmm.
And in this film, a young couple named Madeline and Neil are talked into getting married on a Haitian plantation by the owner, who is secretly plotting to seduce the bride. And so to that end, he ends up teaming up with a local mill owner / witch doctor, who gives him a zombie potion to use on Madeline to bend her to his will. And this witch doctor is played by the same guy who played Dracula only a year before that.
Oh, wild.
Bela Lugosi.
Yeah, Bela Lugosi. So that's kind of believed to have been like the first zombie movie in Hollywood. It was around the same time as all those awesome Universal monster movies.
Oh, sick.
Yeah. Yeah, a year after Dracula and Frankenstein, they're just like, hey, check out this movie called White Zombie.
Dude, whoa.
Yeah, Bela Lugosi, he's rocking some crazy facial hair to show that he's evil.
Of course.
His name, is it his name or the plantation owner? I think his name translates to murder in this movie.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah. And then I'm pretty sure, spoilers for a movie that's from the 1930s and and in black and white, so that'll appeal to nobody in 2020.
Yeah.
I think they actually do kill the bride and turn her into a zombie.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, and then
Nice.
it ends with them being like, "All right, we want revenge. We want it now." And they burn everything on fire, and the zombies get loose, and they turn on Bela Lugosi.
Oh, goodness. But speaking of brides who get turned into zombies, I have yet another supposed real sighting of a zombie.
Oh,
Yes. In 1997, the Lancet Medical Journal journeyed to Haiti to examine cases of real-life zombies. So one case included a 30-year-old woman dying. She was buried on the same day of her death in a family tomb. 3 years later, the family recognized her by a facial mark as she was wandering around near the village. She was recognized by her daughter, siblings, and other villagers as, yes, this is her. She was unable to feed herself and speak, and so they thought that she was a zombie. Once they gained clearance to open her grave, they found that it was empty, save except for, a couple of stones.
Yeah.
And they accused her husband of zombifying her. Basically, apparently she had an affair while she was alive, and he was jealous about that. And so she was actually admitted to a psychiatric hospital in Port-au-Prince, and they said that she was suffering from catatonic schizophrenia. However, the mystery remains. How did she get out of the tomb?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, I don't know. That was pretty... I don't know. That one got me thinking, bro. I don't know.
Yeah.
The way that these stories stick with you cracks me up sometimes.
Dude, it's weird. What can you say? But I don't know.
I know, because you like dwell on them. Like, you continue to think about them. I'll be honest, I read a story and I'm like, whoa, and then I move on. But
Dude,
Eli's sitting there like, it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't, though, and you can't ask her, like, yo, how did you get out of your tomb? She can't talk,
Yeah.
you know? Like,
Yeah,
is she a real zombie? Now, I gotta get these books and, like, read,
Mm-hmm.
Because I bet, you know what? I'm gonna read it and then come out unsatisfied because there won't be a conclusion. Just like
Sure.
everything else that we've talked on this podcast is like, oh, yeah? It's like, there's no real answer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we talked about some of the science behind real life zombies. Talked a little bit about the folklore and some, tales of real life zombies coming out and people recognizing them, which is pretty scary.
Mhm.
But luckily, those reanimated zombies didn't want to eat anyone's faces off.
Yeah. That is one characteristic that's missing from all of the, like, quote, real zombie stories we've talked about. Even with the, like, the animals that you talked about, like no animals or people are lunging for people's brains like they are in the movies.
I would say, I don't know if you guys want to, we can look into the history of how zombies became known as the actual flesh eaters, where those elements I think came from.
For sure. Do it.
So,
Do it.
thank you. Jasmine, you mentioned White Zombie. That's one of the first real zombie movies. And it's interesting because it didn't really take off. Because you have horror movies come out and it's like, oh, after Frankenstein, Dracula, the Mummy, knockoffs were coming out everywhere. Everybody wanted to make, their own versions, and same with, anything that's successful, there's always a knockoff. But that didn't take off until the 50s when zombies kind of came back. In cinema-wise, there's the classic Plan 9 from Outer Space, which I don't know if you guys know anything about.
I don't.
It's known as one of the worst movies of all time. And while I wouldn't say that, because I think that goes to Drive.
You know what? I think I'm Googling this right now. What was it called?
Plan 9 from Outer Space.
I think I might have seen this movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know for sure. You know what? I think I did. I think my dad has made me. Well, he hasn't made me. I think I've watched this movie with my dad.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's pretty rough. I've seen it before. It's pretty rough. It's by Ed Wood, but it's about aliens trying to take over the Earth, and they're like, "Listen, there's only one thing that we can do to take over Earth. We need Plan 9." And Plan 9 refers to they're gonna resurrect all the zombies in the graveyards and have them attack the living.
Oh my!
And then come in and clean up the mess, which is an actual pretty good story for a movie. Unfortunately, there's no budget to the movie.
Oh dang!
Wait. Aliens are invading, so they say, "Let's raise the dead and kill everyone."
Mm-hmm.
I don't get it.
What do you mean?
What's not to get?
Yeah.
Aliens are invading.
Mm-hmm.
Are the zombies supposed to attack the aliens?
No, attack the living, the humans. Kill them all out.
Oh, the zombies are the ones raising the dead? Or no.
No.
The aliens are raising the dead.
Ones. Okay, now I understand. The aliens are the ones raising the dead. I thought humans were raising the dead to fight off the aliens, but then instead they ate humans. Whew, man, maybe I didn't see this movie.
Whoa. Although I do want to see the version Jasmine envisioned.
I know, right? That sounds
crazy.
cool too. Could you imagine double whammy, aliens and zombies, dude?
Yeah. But that's kind of where zombies, cinematic wise, they kind of popped up here or there. They weren't really that used, but in comic books, they were taken off with the old EC comics like Tales from the Crypt. And back in the 50s, comic books were just like, all right, everyone, we got superhero stuff, that's cool and but we got horror comics, we got Tales from the Crypt, we got haunted comics, we got comics just straight up called murder.
Oh.
And like true crime ones, or it's just like, here's stories of murder and mayhem. It only costs 5 cents.
Are those any different from true crime podcasts now?
Heyo.
Whoa.
Getting topical here. But so yeah, zombies, they're popping up in comic books. That's where you kind of get the flesh eating. They raise from the dead. They eat people's faces off, but usually they're attributed to like magic, or some outside force is raising the dead. And then we get to one of the most iconic zombies ever. I think this is where we really define what we consider a zombie, is 1968's Night of the Living Dead.
Oh yes.
By George Romero. And it's so good. It's crazy because I want to put context. In 1968, we had such releases as Planet of the Apes, 2001: A Space Odyssey, and Rosemary's Baby.
Oh my, what a stacked
to-
year.
Right? Just to name a few. And then here comes this little independent movie. They had like no budget. It's filmed in black and white, but it's just like, Night of the Living Dead. You start off with people in a graveyard. They're visiting. They're paying goodbye to their family member, and then just a zombie comes out of nowhere and bashes the guy's brain in.
Oh.
And then the lady runs away in her car. She runs into some survivors in a house, and they get holed up, and there's just zombies everywhere, and they're just like the most. What's great too is they're just so average looking. They're just like a bunch of random like Midwestern people that they hired to be extras. So they're walking around. They just when they eat people, they just rip them to pieces. Like it's great because they're eating like looks like turkey legs and it's all black and white and just gross looking. And just like dropping that in 1968.
Jeez.
But it's really, really good. I highly recommend it because if you like, I'm not going to mention it much, but The Walking Dead is, everyone knows the zombies, The Walking Dead. Just go watch Night of the Living Dead. It's nice. It's like an hour and a half. You don't have 7 seasons of people bitching and complaining at each other. It's condensed. It tells a story. It gets in, it gets out, and it makes you think at the end. But one of my favorite things about that movie is it doesn't explain where the zombies came from. There's a throwaway line about, it appears the so-and-so satellite we sent out to orbit up past Venus, on return it exploded, and there might be some radiation in the air, so everyone, be cautious. But it never really stated what caused them. And that leads into, that's 1968. Once again, zombies don't really quite kick off it, as well. But in the 70s, Italy loves the little buggers.
Really?
We get Italian horror, so they're just like, oh man, what's a vampire? What's a zombie? What's a werewolf? They're all the same thing because Italian movies don't give a F what they do. They just throw everything in there. But you get just like zombies, and they're just like rotting corpses, and they have worms coming out of their faces, and it's 70s, so they use real worms on real people.
The Italian cinema is pretty wild without the horror aspect on its own. It's already like most Italian films are very morbid, I guess, and just like they're always focused on like death.
Yeah, they're insane. There's one called Zombie 2, where a zombie fights a shark.
Oh my. What?
Yeah, and it's just like a real guy in a zombie outfit, and he's in the water with a shark.
Oh my goodness, really?
Yeah,
Method,
it's awesome. But on the tail end of the 70s, George Romero, he comes back with what I consider one of the quintessential zombie movies, because Night of the Living Dead's pretty good, but Dawn of the Dead is where you get I think what everyone thinks of the kind of stumbly, they're kind of gray-skinned zombies. They're moving herds, they surround. But what's great is instead of a house for the setting, what happens when the survivors get stuck in a mall? Because not only do you get, some nice horror movie, you get subtle commentary on American consumerism. Because once the zombies get in the mall, they do what they used to. They wander around, they walk into stores, they fall into fountains.
That's funny.
At one point, a biker gang shows up, led by Tom Savini, and they put up and they start shooting pies into zombie faces.
Oh my god!
Did they remake this movie too?
In 2004, we got a remake of Dawn of the Dead with.
That's the one I've seen.
That's the one where, I'll say it now, where, what zombies, they're a stumbly reminder of our own mortality that can come and eat us at any moment, and you have to watch them shuffle by, and it might be like someone Well, throw that out the window because now they can run around really quick and they're super strong. And then the dad from Modern Family is an asshole in Dawn of the Dead remake. It's crazy.
Zombie movies are great. The So in that one, you said, I know I keep saying that I've seen these movies and then I don't remember anything about them. So this is one where the zombies are like quick and fast and strong, right?
In the remake, yeah, and
Yeah.
the Zack, I think Zack Snyder did it actually.
The
Oh, Zach.
scariest one that I've seen where zombies are quick and strong. Did you guys watch Train to Busan?
I did.
Mm.
I did see that one.
That one is scary. Like zombie movies are usually like fun and you know gory and what's the word I'm looking for?
Visceral.
Maybe I don't know. There's a word I'm thinking of that I can't remember. But like I watched Train to Busan and I was like, no thanks. This is scary. I don't want to I'm okay. I don't want it.
Dude, I know. It has some of my favorite like scenes in it when they have to get to the other side of the train. You know what I'm talking
Mhm.
about?
Oh
They
Mhm.
have to
yeah.
like, oh
Mhm.
my goodness, dude. Oh, dude.
It's scary. I had a lot of strong reactions to that one.
Mm-hmm.
Like a good movie is supposed to do.
That's
Oh
true.
man.
That's true.
It's very intense. Very, very intense. It's
Yeah.
just like
Is
you're
it
constantly bombarded.
is it still on Netflix?
Yeah, it might be. That's where I watched it. There's a
I
second
think
one.
there's a second one now?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yes, dude.
Cool.
I was waiting for the sequel because it does kind of end on a cliffhanger, doesn't it?
Uh, I mean, world-wise, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Main characters, no,
It doesn't?
no.
Oh. I'm gonna have to rewatch it, and then I'm gonna watch the second one
Mm.
because yeah, yeah.
So we got scary, quick, strong zombies in that
Mm-hmm.
one, and then, as we've said, the most common are the wandering, rotting,
Rotting one.
mindless ones, like the ones in Shaun of the Dead.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
That
Another
one is
classic.
great. Mm-hmm. And I will bring up one movie that defines the final quality of what we know, because up until this point we've had in cinema, entertainment, we've had a mixture of like kind of voodoo zombies, some raising from the dead actual corpses zombies. We
Mm.
get some fast zombies later on, but one of the most defining moments, and Jasmine, you said in the opening, zombies want brains. And we can pinpoint that very exact add-on to 1985's Return of the Living Dead.
Oh yeah?
Oh.
Mm-hmm. To where here's what's interesting. So 1968, George A. Romero, and he has a partner, and I can't remember the guy's name, but they go in to make Night of the Living Dead. They don't quite understand how copyright and trademarks work. So when they released the movie, they just put the little copyright on it, and they thought that's all it did.
Oh.
So Night of the Living Dead is a public domain movie.
Yeah.
So what's great is so you can it's so readily available, and if there's a movie that's got to be public domain, that one is definitely it. But I think in some way they were able to get some of the rights back so they could release their own.
Mm.
But part of the deal was every movie that Romero did would end with "of the Dead." So you get his movies Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, and later on Land of the Dead. Well, the
Mhm.
other guy, he teamed up with Dan O'Bannon, who I believe was one of the original producers on Alien.
Oh, okay.
And so he gets to name it. He got Of the Living Dead, and he got to keep that part. So Return of the Living Dead is a somewhat sequel to the original movie, Night of the Living Dead, in the sense that that really happened, and the movie is based on a retelling of it.
Oh.
So it's like this weird kind of meta.
Hmm.
But there's the main character who works at a mortuary, and at one night they get a delivery of these giant oil tins, these military grade, and it was some kind of like biological weapon, and it's called 2,4,5 trioxin. And they say that's what inspired Night of the Living Dead, as some of it got loose and some zombies got up and they killed it and they turned it into a movie. Cut to the canister breaking, gas getting out, the cemetery coming up, zombies come over, they start eating people. But when the zombies raise from the grave, they can look at their victims and they say, brains. brains. And at one point, a zombie picks up the speaker of a paramedic because some ambulance showed up and the guys got eaten. And the zombie goes, "Send more paramedics."
Yeah, I remember that.
Oh, the movie is amazing because it's just so wild. It's so 80s. I highly recommend it because one of the zombies, he's called the Tar Man, and he literally looks like a skeleton with like dripping goo coming off of him. And it's a guy in an actual suit. There's no CGI. There's no prosthetics. It's an actual. He's like the proto Doug Jones back in the 80s.
Hey. I think my problem when recalling these movies is I have seen a lot of them, but I don't take strong enough note of the titles, so I'm not able to remember which is which or what happens in each one. But I definitely do remember that "send more paramedics" line. I've definitely seen that before.
Wild. If I may bring up a couple of zombie flicks that are not as influential as the ones Alex just brought up, but Scooby-Doo Zombie Island.
Oh,
For real.
oh, it's so good.
It's pretty sick, dude. I mean, that revived Scooby-Doo for a lot of people. I think just because you had the original series Scooby-Doo, and then it became like Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo. And Scrappy-Doo wasn't very well liked by anyone above the age of 5. And then, that kind of evolved, and they had like a pup named Scooby-Doo, and, a bunch of other like Scooby-Doo. I forget what it's called.
The 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo with Vincent Price.
Yeah, which is kind of cool, but not very good.
They had Scooby-Doo meets the Harlem Globetrotters.
Yeah, and then there was this one Scooby-Doo series where they just team up with celebrities at the time. They team up with Batman at one point, and
Batman, the Addams Family, the Three Stooges.
Yeah, so Scooby-Doo was like not doing so hot, and then out of nowhere, they come out with Zombie Island.
Yeah, it was straight to VHS too.
Yeah, and it just kind of introduces like the monsters aren't fake now. They're real, I do have some mixed feelings about it. I just watched it recently.
Yeah, I saw it a couple months ago too. I watched it on Netflix.
Yeah. I think it's good, but it does follow the typical Scooby model. There isn't like an unmasking, but there is like, oh, so that's who it is, and then the problem goes away like that. So, just like everything else in Scooby-Doo. So I thought that was cool.
Well, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in that movie that's more than just zombies. Like there's demon cats, there's pirates, there's so much other stuff. But
those really hot peppers.
Yeah, see, I thought this part was interesting. So I've seen Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island before. They're on a pepper plantation, whatever. But doing the research for this episode is the first time where I made the like connection to voodoo, because they have some, nods to voodoo. Maybe not the traditional voodoo. Like we've said, it's like the sensationalized, voodoo dolls type thing. But like they throw in the voodoo dolls, and they're on a plantation, which, it's going back to those Haitian folklore stories that we were telling. They say zombies are made to work on the sugarcane plantations, and I don't know, it's just very interesting for me to be doing this research and then like make those connections, like, oh, so they're not extremely accurate, but I can see where they pulled from.
Right.
It has the best opening song ever.
Oh yeah,
Terror Time Again.
Yeah, dude, it's pretty good. And that kind of like launched a whole series on its own. Cyber Chase, Alien Invaders, The Witch's Ghost. What is it? The vampire one.
The Hex Girls.
Yeah, where the Hex Girls first show up. Which, dude, the Hex Girls should have their own show by now.
Yeah.
Oh
Dude,
yeah.
everyone knows the Hex Girls, dude. It's like, and they're like not in that much Scooby stuff, so it's like, dude, they could do their own thing. But yeah, moving on. This is not a flick, but something that is very well known. I think Call of Duty Zombies. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's a very big one. All my friends played it growing up, so you know, basically you're just in a match and you have to go till you die. Just fight as many zombies as you can, and they come in different waves. And you can like stake out in a house. You can just stand on top of a car in the middle of the road if you really feel like it. Whatever. These zombies, they're kind of slow. They're the slow kind of walk at 2 miles an hour type of thing, which doesn't sound like it would be very hard, but you have limited ammunition and
Mm-hmm.
each wave includes more and more zombies. So
You gotta get good or get dead.
basically, oh my goodness, how did I not think of this? Uh, Halo, the original Halo,
Mm-hmm.
I guess could be classified as a zombie type thing.
The flood.
Uh, the Flood. Yeah, I've played the first game, Combat Evolved, a couple of times, and it
Mm-hmm.
always gets to me how it switches so hardcore. So
Oh
it's like
man.
there's like 12 levels in the game. In the first
Mm-hmm.
six, you're just shooting aliens, you're like, yes, killing aliens. And then, like, out of the blue, dude, you like go inside this facility and everyone's dead. And you watch
Mm-hmm.
like this little video and they're getting attacked by like these zombie like things. And you're like, oh my goodness. And then they come into the same room as you. And you're like, oh no. And they reanimate, like, you can kill an alien and then
Mm-hmm.
they'll reanimate the alien as some like hideous flood creature. And it's like pretty awful and scary.
Oh man, dude, Halo. Oh gosh, when the first Halo came out, it was unbelievable because just a little tangent you were
Yeah.
talking about. But my friend, he had an Xbox when they first came out, and he
Mm.
was telling me about this game called Halo. And I was like, first of all, Halo, that's a stupid name. I don't get. And he's like, "Oh, you shoot little aliens and they run around." And I was like, "Oh, this sounds so dumb." Ugh. So I went to his house one week and he's like, "Oh, let's play Halo." I was like, "All right, let's see what this is." Cut to the opening where it's like a Gregorian chant music takes over and you
Yeah.
see the giant Halo come up and it's just like this beautiful sight. And then you start playing the game and it's just like these giant open worlds and there's aliens everywhere and they're big and small and there's this story where you're teaming up with these marines from aliens basically and you got to storm this like ancient alien device called a halo and the bad guys are called the covenant, and you
Yeah.
storm the halo and you get to that point and it's just they talk about the flood and they keep saying the flood comes and the flood washes over and the flood eliminates everything. You're like, what is this? And then you see these zombies, aliens, and they have tentacles popping out. And then when you shoot them, little tiny baby aliens shoot out and they scutter
Oh,
around the floor.
dude,
It's
it's crazy.
it's just it was mind blowing back in the day.
Yeah.
So
The worst level in that game is like the second to last one, I think it is, where you have to get to the mainframe of the Halo ring to find
mm,
out what it is. And you just have to go through like 6 or 7 floors of just zombie infested
mm-hmm,
hallways. And it's not fun. And the checkpoints are so far in between. And like
mm-hmm,
they they just kill you all the
mm-hmm.
time. It's like so ridiculous. Like
It's definitely a back in the day. That's how we became men,
it was
surviving
playing.
the mainframe from Halo.
Yeah, pretty savage.
Well, I'd like to add, since we're talking about some kind of a rarity, if you will, zombies in video games. Huh. Seems kind of rare,
Yeah.
if you will. Uh, of course, zombies are everywhere in video games, and one of the most iconic ones was 1996 Resident Evil.
Oh yeah.
And what's kind of cool about Resident Evil is, so you have like the 70s zombies, they're all over the place, they're kind of crazy, you know, still kind of here or there. '80s hits. Zombies not so much because a lot, vampires and Cthulhu and all these other monsters are taking the spotlight. With horror movies. So the '90s comes, and '90s are just like, oh, we don't know what to do. It's all over the place. It's weird, it's wacky, it's extreme, and in your face. And then
Yeah.
Resident Evil comes back. They're like, hey, remember the slow shambly zombies from the Romero? They're like, oh yeah. Well, when used right, they could be awesome. And Resident Evil is just like, it's so funny because it's such a twist in like the extremeness of the '90s, where it's kind of slow and it's all this build up, and you have five bullets at a time, and there's 6 zombies in any given hallway, and you got to try to survive. And they're created by the T virus, which is Umbrella Corporation. They've been doing this. So we have like voodoo zombies. We have zombies, raised by magic or maybe space radiation. Resident Evil is like, well, they're a pharmaceutical side effect of them trying to find medicine is when humans get the T virus, they turn into zombies.
Oh.
So are you telling me Resident Evil was a game before it was a movie?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting, because there are so many Resident Evil movies I've lost track.
Oh yeah. The first one where how like the first 5 minutes is in a little mansion and it looks kind of spooky?
Yes.
That's the whole first game.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you're in a giant mansion and it's like kind of old school, survival horror. And then at the end, it's like, oh, bam, there's a big facility and they're making these zombies. And
Dang.
Yeah, and what I always liked about Resident Evil is because it's one of those things to where, oh, it's got zombies in it. That's the most recognizable aspect. But what's cool about the T virus is when it's injected into humans, they kind of become mindless zombies that eat flesh. When it's put into animals, dogs, they kind of have the same effect. Their face kind of rots off, and like Doberman pincers with like, sharp teeth. Birds become like dive bombing little monsters. Sharks become evil zombie sharks. You have to fight a zombie shark at one point.
Oh.
But my favorite aspect is when you put a T virus into a tarantula, it becomes 7 feet tall.
Oh God.
And there's a part where you got to go through. It's just the hallways covered in spider webs, and there's giant tarantulas everywhere.
Wow.
Oh. That's not okay.
But that's a lot of some of the big influential tentpole zombies.
You're forgetting one last one. May we mention?
Oh?
Red Dead Redemption, Undead Nightmare.
Oh.
It plays as an alternate ending to the original Red Dead Redemption, where you come home after basically killing everyone in your old gang. You come home to find one of your closest friends has now become a zombie and has infected your family. And so you basically just hogtie your family and leave them and go try to find a cure for whatever this zombie disease is. But the entire Old West frontier has now become just infested with zombies.
Mm-hmm. And the fast, scary kind, too.
Oh, yes, dude. It's a pretty savage game, dude. I'm scared when I play it. But you know what makes it even eerier is that the last update they did to the game renders it so that at one point when you're just going through the Old West, all the regular alive people just don't have their heads.
Whoa.
Yeah, like it's a glitch in the game, and like you can't beat it because it like broke the game basically. And so like you'll just go from one town to the next, and then everyone there will just not have their heads, and you can like still talk to them, you can still like sell stuff to them, but they don't have heads. And it's just weird. I guess they don't want to fix it, and everyone's kind of mad about it because you can't beat the game. So
wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, so like you'll just kill off a horde of zombies, and then you'll realize all the survivors don't have heads.
It's like a David Lynch-esque twist to it.
Yeah, dude. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, that's kind of a nice overview of zombies. It could definitely dig a little deeper if you want, because there's still a lot more out there.
Sure.
Well, do you guys want to hear about the time that there was a radio broadcast about a zombie apocalypse that people thought was real?
Oh no, tell us.
Oh
Yes.
no.
So I read an article that was written in 2013 about an event that happened in 2011. There's this guy named Steven Schlossman, who's a Harvard psychiatrist, but he's also a fiction writer. And so he appeared on the Coast to Coast radio program in 2011 to basically talk about his book, but the way that they did it was they kind of talked about it as if it were real at first. So he wrote a novel called The Zombie Autopsies: Secret Notebooks from the Apocalypse, which presents a zombie scenario that feels pretty plausible despite the fact that it's, fiction. And he had also previously written a fictional medical paper on the virus that causes zombification, which is called ataxic neurodegenerative satiety deficiency syndrome, I
Ooh,
think.
mouthful.
So he went on this radio program with host Ian Punnett, and the program aired from 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. Eastern time. And Coast to Coast had done this before, where they take like a work of fiction and interview the author as if what he'd written were actually true. So this is what they did with Stephen. And the author, Stephen Schlossman, knew that they would be like pretending it was real for a little bit, and then they would let listeners know a little bit later that they were just messing with them. But he also naively believed that most listeners would realize this, because
There's the
what
first
ended
mistake.
up what ended up happening is, the show generated a ripple of genuine concern. Like, they talked. I haven't listened to the actual broadcast. I don't even know if it's available. I'm sure it's available somewhere. I didn't listen to it, but basically they went on and talked about the zombie apocalypse as if it were something that was really happening and things that had really been discovered. So after the show, and after, people realized that it wasn't real, he had to like answer for his actions and like apologize to his peers and to his boss because people thought he acted irresponsibly and all this other stuff. And it was like super dramatic, but it was a very similar situation to what happened in 1938 when Orson Welles did his dramatic adaptation of War of the Worlds, where,
Right.
People thought that explosions were happening on Mars and aliens were invading and the world was ending in real time.
Dude, have you listened to that though?
No, I haven't.
It's on YouTube, and
Mhm.
I listened to it one night, and it's very convincing. And you're like, oh my goodness, we're being invaded right now.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things to where it's like, because people always say, "Oh man, boy, people in the 30s, geez, get a load of this." No, listen to that and just picture a time when the radio was the only way you could get information,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like, "Hey, everyone, aliens are here. Goodbye."
Yeah, dude, they're straight up like, they're like, it's coming out of the container. We don't know what it is. Oh my God, what is it? And then it just cuts out, and you're like, what?
Oh man. Well, before I segue, I have a fancy segue that I want to do, but I want to make sure that there isn't anything else you guys want to talk about before I do it. The next thing I have is the CDC zombie preparedness. Is that
Oh,
good for what's
ooh,
next?
yeah.
Please transition.
Take it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, as it turns out, if there ever is an actual zombie apocalypse, the CDC is prepared. So they have a website and a blog for zombie preparedness, which started out as like a tongue-in-cheek campaign to engage new audiences with preparedness messages for various disasters. And I literally forgot everything I just said in the middle of that sentence. I literally, oh my gosh. I don't know where my brain's at tonight. I think a zombie ate it. Basically what I'm trying to say is the CDC released a zombie preparedness website in 2011 because the idea was, oh, we can like joke about this and use it to teach people real, disaster preparedness skills. So the website literally says, how do I prepare for a zombie apocalypse? Well, we're here to answer that question for you and hopefully share a few tips about preparing for real emergencies too. So it's like they're messing around, but they're like giving you accurate information for other types of disasters. So I'm going to share those with you. You should always have an emergency kit in your house. This includes things like food, water, and other supplies to get you through the first couple of days before you can locate a zombie-free refugee camp. Or in the event of a natural disaster, it will buy you some time until you're able to make your way to an evacuation shelter or utility lines are restored. It's pretty much just your basic stuff that everybody kind of knows about, like you need water, you need food, medications, tools and supplies like utility knife, duct tape, battery-powered radio, sanitation and hygiene products, clothing and bedding, important documents like your driver's license, passport, and birth certificate, and first aid supplies. And then after you have your emergency kit, you should make your emergency plan. Pick a meeting place for your family to regroup, identify your emergency contacts, plan your evacuation route. That was all kind of general, basic, need to know stuff about preparing for disasters. But what I found interesting on the website was the information that they gave on like what the CDC would do if there was a real zombie outbreak. And it includes this. They said if zombies did start roaming the streets, CDC would conduct an investigation much like any other disease outbreak. CDC would provide technical assistance to cities, states, or international partners dealing with a zombie infestation. This assistance might include consultation, lab testing and analysis, patient management and care, tracking of contacts, and infection control, including isolation and quarantine. It is likely that an investigation of this scenario would seek to accomplish several goals, which are determine the cause of the illness, the source of the infection virus or toxin, learn how it's transmitted and how readily it is spread, how to break the cycle of transmission and thus prevent further cases, and how patients can best be treated. Not only would scientists be working to identify the cause and cure of the zombie outbreak, but CDC and other federal agencies would send medical teams and first responders to help those in affected areas. And I just gotta say, reading all of that, which was like written back in 2011, and thinking about the fact that we're in a pandemic and we are in quarantine right now, I'm like, man, this is too real. Like, I don't like this is too relevant.
Ooh, right in the feels, man.
One thing that is interesting that I did read in Carlin Betch's book, she made an interesting point. So she's got a chapter on zombies in her book, and something that I found interesting that I just wanted to bring up to you guys and see if you agree. She talks about if there was like a real zombie outbreak, how long the quote apocalypse might last or how long you would have to try and hold out. Because she talks about the decomposition of bodies and if a corpse was to come back from the dead, it would not be pretty, like it would be rotting, it would still be decomposing and everything else. So I'm going to read this direct quote from her book and see what you guys think. Again, this is from Carlin Betch's book, Monstrous, The Lore, Gore, and Science Behind Your Favorite Monsters, which we've mentioned her quite a few times recently, and we interviewed her a while back. She's got a paragraph in here that says, zombies have too many enemies. This is in the chapter, The Zombie Virus, Why It's Not That Scary. She says a dead body decomposes in approximately 40 days, but add heat and humidity and you have a zombie's head rolling off like a scoop of ice cream onto a hot pavement. First, there's the bacteria attacking that delicious zombie flesh, along with maggots, blowflies, and flesh flies. Those insects would start with the moist bits, the eye sockets, the eardrums. Then vultures can gobble up a body in less than 2 hours, followed by wolves, bears, and other wild animals that are going to love the immediate food supply. Even if a zombie makes it to 40 days, that is a short enough time period for most people to hide in their basement and wait it out before the zombie is reduced to a pile of rotting flesh. So, what I gather from this, and I wish I would have remembered to ask her when we were interviewing her, however long ago that was, she's essentially saying, if I understand correctly, that the most that like a zombie apocalypse would last is like 40 days. If you're just talking like patient zero, this person's a zombie, if we can contain ourselves and make sure that nobody else gets infected or gets bitten, this patient zero is going to be non-existent in like 40 days because its body is completely going to deteriorate.
But what if they don't?
I mean, science says they do. Dead bodies decompose in approximately 40 days. So
Yep,
if you have
but
a dead body,
we're talking about something that's scientifically impossible.
I know. That's why I brought it up. I want you guys' opinions. But that wasn't even what I was thinking about. What I'm thinking about is the flies, insects, vultures, wolves, bears, and other wild animals that are eating this infected flesh, this
Oh yeah.
rotting flesh. Are we not gonna get zombie wolves and zombie bears and zombie insects like that? I feel like that would just make things worse.
Oh yeah, dude. Oh yeah. At that point, it would be game over, I think, huh?
Exactly.
Yeah, right. It's one of those things. So it's like, oh man, everyone run! There's zombies, but they're kind of falling apart and their heads are rolling. Oh my gosh. All right, I guess we're okay. Oh no, the wolves are eating the bodies, and the flies are flying around, and the frogs are eating the flies. So we got zombie fly and zombie frogs.
You
Yeah.
got to think about all the homeless dogs and cats.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my, dude. It would just. I mean, humans could probably contain themselves, but animals
Mm-hmm.
would. Dude, it would be game over.
And then
There would be no escape.
there'd be two types of zombie deers.
Dude, yeah, there would be. Jeez. Oh my goodness, dude. All of our pets.
Little fluffy, no.
I mean, there are plenty of zombie movies that have zombie animals in them. I've seen zombie dogs.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen zombie deer. I'm pretty sure. Didn't Train to Busan have a zombie deer in the beginning, or is that a different movie?
I don't know.
I
I
can't
don't
remember.
It's
Could
been a
have.
little.
I think it did. I don't know. I gotta watch it again.
Ooh yeah. Well, we got some good what Cryptid Campfire cinema recommendations for this month
Yeah.
of spookiness.
A lot. Yeah.
I had a feeling this episode would be very pop culture heavy because I mean, movies is basically where we get all of our, knowledge about zombies.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
At least
And usually,
modern day zombies, I mean.
yeah, and usually they're pretty, I guess you'd say, congruent, or they're all pretty concise, and they have the same kind of mythos for every zombies. It's like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we mentioned it, but it's one of those things to where aim for the head or the spinal column, is the
Yeah.
way to take them out. Don't waste your bullets on the lungs or the hearts because those aren't working.
Which I always thought it was interesting that you have to shoot them in the head because that's essentially where their brain is. Do zombies have their own brains? Zombies have brains, right?
I mean,
I
I
mean, it's
guess
still
that's the
in there.
reasoning. That's
Yeah,
the
yeah,
reasoning behind shooting them there, right?
mhm. Their little nervous central system.
I think so. So many hypotheticals to discuss when it comes to zombies.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Well, I'm gonna hypothetically ask where I can find you on the internets. Alexander Daikaiju.
Yeah, if you want to find me, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at AlexDaikaiju, Alex DAIKAIJU. And on my Instagram, I post a lot of cryptid monster related art. And this month of October, I'm doing some spooky drawings, so be sure to check it out. And my sources today, I used a little bit of the Wikipedia for good measure. And then I used nothing but my old brain of movie knowledge by watching all these zombie movies.
Yeah.
And well, if I wanted to find more about the Jasmine May With and all the folklore of zombies, where could I find that?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram. My name is the same on both. Jasmine May With, JasmineMaewith. I went to quite a few sources for this episode, but a lot of what I found was actually not mentioned in this episode. There is so many ways that you can go really deep looking back into the folklore of Haitian zombies and voodoo and everything else. So even though I didn't mention a lot of it in this particular episode, there are a lot of sources that exist for it. And I looked at quite a few of them. They were Paste Magazine, the History Channel, NPR, BBC, the New York Times, Lexico, Harvard Magazine, and as I mentioned, I referred to Carlin Betch's book, Monstrous, the Lore, Gore, and Science Behind Your Favorite Monsters.
Oh, yeah. And, well, so Eli Watson, tell us more about yourself and how you know a lot about random zombie facts.
You can follow me at the Eli Watson on Instagram. I made my dramatic exit from Twitter for good.
Aha.
Oh, yeah?
I've been going back and forth throughout the entirety of this show, but I think it's over. Twitter is gone for me. It is dead to me. It's dead.
Oh, no.
I pinned my final tweet to the top. If you guys care to look me up there and read why I left. But on my Instagram, I post some cool landscape photos. You know, if you guys like landscapes, check it out. Meanwhile, my research for today came from a couple of sources. UMIC.edu, ranker.com, the CDC website, Wikipedia, and io9.gizmodo.com. Probably not the most factual of sources, but, you know, I think it got the job done. Anyways,
A name like that.
yeah. Follow Cryptid Campfire on all your social medias. That's at Cryptid Campfire on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're on all of those platforms. Check out our website, cryptidcampfire.com, where you can get yourself some snazzy Cryptid Campfire t-shirts. They're quite excellent, if I do say so myself.
Oh, yeah.
And if you still can't get enough of us, check us out on Patreon. For $5 a month, you get access to at least 2 exclusive episodes every month, as well as a exclusive wallpaper design created by Alexander Daikaiju himself.
Mm-hmm.
And this month, Alex and I are going to be talking about some spooky stuff. So, you know, hop on the bandwagon.
Yeah, join us.
Yes. And I guess with that, I will bid you adieu.
Adieu.
I do who?
And have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
This podcast is a part of Straight Up Strange Productions. Discover more shows like this one at Straight Up Strange.